Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. So today I have a discussion and I feel like it's a more appropriate time to actually make a video like this because for the past few weeks or months, we've been trying to speculate or figure out what the developers have been, up to regarding progressing in this game or regarding even the future. And now that we've seen that there's still going to be support, I feel like it's appropriate that we basically measure what kind of support we're going to be getting and see if there are a few requests that players have basically been asking for a while. Now, this is not necessarily a video about, say, year 3 or whatever. This is more like if the developers are going to be doing a year 3, then that's fine. But if not, there are a few things that the community would love to see, which we some sort, in a way, assumed will probably be in the game. And there's only one on my mind that I actually do want to put out here in this video. Now, before I even go ahead and throw down any request, I want to say in the past few months, my respect for game development has changed drastically. I've been mentioning this on this channel that I've actually been, looking into what it takes to develop a video game, but I haven't really gone into a lot of detail. In fact, the first time I talked about it publicly was on Mr. Kamikaze Von Doom's, podcast that he was doing, and I made that mention that I was actually working on a prototype for my very first video game that I want to do solo as just a fun project for myself. And after hundreds and hundreds of lines of code, after a lot of bugs and a lot of errors, I can tell you that I am still just scratching the surface, and I still feel very, very lost when it comes to a lot of aspects of game development. I mean, this is on the screen here, some of my code for my main character, and it's still a big, huge issue on how I'm going to even flesh out a lot of gameplay mechanics and functionality. So I'm doing this by myself, and I'm here covering a video game. So when my perspective is a little positive that I actually have a fleshed out full video game that I can come in here and play and do all kinds of crazy stuff, please note that it's coming from that perspective where I've actually gone through different kinds of nuclear meltdowns on kind of the difficulty on how to develop a video game. And then now I'm looking and saying, okay, I respect any game developer that can ship any game at all. So that being said, I want to go ahead and say they're massive. I think it's some sort of an obligation that you take this next year to actually fulfill a lot of things for the community if you're not bringing out a year 3 content piece. And the very first place that I believe that massive can actually start is in bringing legendary missions to the table. Now, legendary missions are something that have been a very huge aspect of the PvE gameplay and the PvE side of things. And this is not a PvP, discussion. I know many PvP players are saying there have not been any PvP improvements, but I think I can talk about that in another video and basically kind of provide a little bit of light to that effect. But in PvE, we know that there's a huge PvE community in the game. We know that there's a huge PvE appreciation, and basically the PvE in this game is actually very, very pristine. In fact, big ups to the progression designer. I think her name is Andrada. I can't remember how you pronounce it, but it's something to be said of how well they've done the progression in PvE and how they've even done the end game of PvE so far. I mean, judging that at the beginning of the game, we didn't have any end game PvE that was active and ready to go. After about a week or so, we were able to get Tidal Basin and, we got some of the strongholds. But then if you look at everything right now, I think it makes a whole lot of sense that we move on to seeing more legendary missions when it comes to the PvE side of things. And even the raids are even also sketchy, and I'll talk about that over the course of the video, maybe somewhere down the line. And another difficulty that I also see, which made me even want to make this video, was if you think about the way they've set up the legendary missions, they've set them up in the 3 strongholds so far. Well, in 3 of the strongholds, I think there are altogether about 5 of them, including the zoo and also the Camp White Oak missions. Now, the challenge is those 2 missions are actually very long. Even when you're playing them on easy difficulty, there's just so much area, so much real estate to actually cover. I don't even know how long it took to develop an area like that. So thumbs up to the level designers on that one, because designing a level took me about 3 months, and I basically did basically a quarter of a mile walk in my own project that I was prototyping. So anyone that does National Zoo, yes, I understand it's a team, but still a very huge undertaking to come up with. And doing a legendary mission on somewhere like that is going to be intensive. Even for the players, it might not even be enjoyable. And my suggestion is, why not take some of the missions that we already have that do have a good length and duration and very wonderful level design and implement them into a legendary stronghold for the Black Tusks? Now, I'm not saying that the developers have not thought about this. Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I think if they were to do something like this, where we got some of these legendary missions over the course of time, it will provide a new dimension to playing the game on the PvE side from endgame. Because now, not only are we already used to all of the spawn points, all of the strategies of the three, legendary missions available, I think this is going to provide a very fresh look and a fresh take on how we play. This can also be launched with some more brand sets, some more gear sets, and I don't think the wheel has to be really reinvented. There are gear sets and brand sets that a lot of people miss from the Division 1, or functionalities that people would enjoy from, if they were to maybe bring them back in Division 1, which they've done before. They brought a version of the Striker back. Who knows? They might be able to say, let's just, go ahead and bring something like the Nomad or the Predator's Mark, or, they could bring something that pertains to some of the weapons that we've had before in the Division 1, and maybe just tie them into the next few months while bringing a fresh take on this content. And I think this is something that, will not have to do with another new level design when we're saying, oh, we want new missions or whatever. It will cut down on the time of the extra level design that can actually entail, because if you need to go ahead and do a new mission, you have to structure, the buildings and all of that. Then you have another aspect too, which is the Warlords of New York map already. So the Warlords of New York map basically has a series of missions that have already been used for the progression to level 40. And I have to be the first to, basically tell you, since after playing those missions and getting my Bullet King, I have not visited New York to touch anything. I just sit in Washington, D.C. and play my legendary missions. And I think because the level design is already available, the levels and the missions, these can also be leveraged to do some legendary missions, since legendary is exclusive to level 40 people. And I think this should also not only be done, but should be done as a kind of I would say, an incentive, or basically in good faith to the community, saying, hey, we want to continue to support this game because, it's quite obvious that there is more to come in the Division universe. And all of this has to be taken in the context of there is not going to be a Division, a Year 3 announcement, basically. But if there will be a Year 3 announcement, then now new content needs to be fleshed out, new areas need to be explored, new DLCs need to be taken a look at. And I think perhaps a tuning into PvP needs to be at the center of what they're going to be doing. Now, I know PvP has a whole lot of issues when it comes to the way it's been structured, when it comes to the way the game has actually, put it. And I've made a lot of comments as to why I think the PvP is the way it is. But one of the things that makes me not make a lot of PvP videos is I get a lot of comments from the PvP community saying, you don't PvP, so you don't know anything about the game. You shouldn't make comments about it. And I laugh because, you know about the game, you know about the game. You don't have to play PvP in the Division to know about PvP. You just have to play the Division enough to see exactly the landscape of the game. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. A lot of my own assumptions, I feel, have actually come to fruition. And it's just basically kind of a gut, the way I kind of felt about the game. But now there's a lot more concrete reasoning as to why we got the PvP we got, which I'll try my best to discuss in another video. Now, when it comes to raids, which I promised to talk about, and I'm going to, quickly just highlight them. If we're looking to see maybe another raid being added this year, I think there's a little bit of complexity to that. If you guys remember, when Operation Iron Horse was actually launched, the team at Ubisoft Anarchy, or Annecy, as somebody said it's pronounced, I should have known that it's a French studio, they actually were the ones who actually did Operation Iron Horse. And during the State of the Game, the special event, it was an associate creative director from that studio and a game designer that were on the State of the Game from the Ubisoft Annecy studio in France. And so that was actually pretty cool. So I think if they were to bring a new Year 3 content, it could be something that's already in the works, being leveraged to studios that are outside, because they actually do have a lot of the experience dealing with our game. And remember, I showed you guys that another Ubisoft studio actually made the Pentagon missions. And so, this is something really cool that they found a way to be able to decentralize the production, or just divide the labor, if you understand what I mean, to other people outside, and they're able to work on the game and provide content. Perhaps since we've seen a lot of what's gone on the past year with the pandemic and all that, this, in my opinion, may have halted a lot of the, the production. Even Yannick himself, in one of the State of the Game, said, this year year has been really tough. For game development, it actually has been. I have some people that I've been talking to on Twitter, and, they've just been, trying to, we've been trying to wrap our minds and brainstorm on what gaming is going to look like in the next few years. But I think at the end of the day, those of us that have supported Division, we kind of do understand what exactly it entails. And I've seen a lot of comments about, I'm expected to do my job even though the pandemic is here and all that, and I still do it. And I understand, ladies and gentlemen, I also have a job that, is heavily affected by all of this stuff as well. But in terms of game development and just seeing all what it entails, I think I now have a better sense and an understanding of the challenges, especially when you need people to actually fulfill specific aspects of your game design in order for you to be able to actually move on with your work. I showed you guys some of my code, over 300 lines of code in just that main character, and I'm still not done. I'm just halfway done in designing him. And I can tell you, if you need your gameplay programmer and your mechanics person to actually work on something before you as the level designer can do it, it's almost impossible for you as a level designer to progress without having their work already finalized. So the way gaming is actually, developed, or games are developed, is so complicated that I can see now from a much more clear perspective how this particular pandemic has basically caused a rift in the way video games are basically going to be, provided and delivered for us in the coming future. I'll cut the video short here, and in the next video, hopefully, I'll be talking about PvP, the future of the Division franchise, and some of my thoughts based on some of the things that I've, basically been able to glean, so far. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for your time and audience. I appreciate you guys a lot. If you want to hang out in the Gamey Daddy community, you can basically hit the subscribe button, or you can like the video. This is definitely going to help me, and hopefully I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out.